NFL Daily by Chat Sports. Tyler Jones here with you. Thanks for joining us. Coming up on today's show, Joel Klatt, probably my favorite college football analyst in the country, does a terrific job on Fox, calling games on Saturdays with Gus Johnson. He has been covering the NFL draft and the inside and outs of this draft and breaking down the players, and he's got a mock draft out. And we've been doing these mock draft breakdowns from PFF, ESPN, Mel, Todd, Daniel Jeremiah, others. And now we want to see what Joel had to say for all 31 first-round picks. I got some thoughts. Joel, let's put it this way, it's interesting. I have some disagreements. We'll dive into it right now. Let's start at number one. No surprise. Bryce Young, the quarterback from Alabama, goes number 1 to Carolina. Same thing with number 2, C.J. Stroud, going to the Houston Texans at number 3, 1-2. Most folks have the 1-2 being these two quarterbacks, Bryce Young and C.J. Stroud. So the draft for Klatt really begins at number 3. That's where he has the Indianapolis Colts moving up from the 4 position, one spot to 3, to make sure they get their guy with this pick. And we even saw a tweet from Jim Irsay talking about quarterbacks and who they could potentially end up with. And in Joel's mock draft, he's on Anthony Richardson at number 3, going to the Indianapolis Colts. We don't know the trade compensation it would take to move up, but I can tell you this much, it would not be cheap. Here's what Joel had to say about why he projects Richardson at 3 to Indianapolis. He's got the highest ceiling out of these guys. I'm going to continue calling him the Rubik's Cube. If you can figure out the Rubik's Cube, it's beautiful. And he could potentially be the best player on the field. Now, Rubik's Cube, it's an interesting analogy, but, I mean, when a guy throws for a less than 54% completion percentage, that's a pretty hard Rubik's Cube to solve here. We know that he's an incredible athlete. He was the star of the show at the Combine. But he's got his work cut out for him at the next level. I think Anthony Richardson is a project. I don't think of him the way Joel Klatt does. I see what Joel's coming from, but I got to disagree. I'm out on Anthony Richardson, personally speaking, but I understand where he's coming from here. Time to embrace debate here on NFL Daily in true Fox Sports fashion. Who is the best quarterback of the 2023 NFL Draft? This is our pinned comment today. You might get an ad break. If so, take advantage of it. Get your votes in. Tell me in the comment section who's the best quarterback in this draft and why. Is it Bryce Young? Is it C.J. Stroud? Is it Anthony Richardson? Is it Will Levis for that matter? Let me know in the comment section who you think the best quarterback is on today's show. At 4, the Arizona Cardinals go Will Anderson, and they're sitting at home laughing because they convinced the Colts to move up to 3, and they could have still gotten Richardson in theory at 4 with this situation of the Cardinals going Anderson at 4. 5, Joel has Seattle going Tyree Wilson, passing on Jalen Carter here. Joel's not that high on Jalen Carter. He has him number 11 on his big board, which to me is just crazy. More on Jalen Carter in a bit. Christian Gonzalez at 6 to the Detroit Lions, the corner from the University of Oregon. Very good football player. Devon Witherspoon next, 7 to the Raiders. I think kind of like what we've talked about with the two quarterbacks, of some people like Young better, some people like Stroud better. That's what we're looking at with the corners, that some people like Gonzalez better, others like Witherspoon better. We go to 8. That is where we find the Falcons taking Myles Murphy. Myles Murphy's stock has been all over the place. We've seen him as high as top 5 to the end of the first round, but Joel likes him here at 8 to help out that Atlanta defense that needs a lot of help. And then at 9 is where we find Jalen Carter going to the Chicago Bears. I got to tell you, this one is just ridiculous. Look, Jalen Carter's had these draft visits with teams like Seattle and others, and we have not heard not one, not a single leak of that teams don't like Jalen Carter, that they can't get past the red flags. It seems like teams have accepted that Jalen Carter is got everything figured out, that he's going to be okay. I don't think he goes past 5 to Seattle. With that said, here's Joel's reasoning of why Jalen Carter at 9. There are a lot of red flags on Jalen Carter. His talent might outweigh the red flags for some organizations. I think they do. and he might very well be picked earlier. But you look at how this process has gone for him, and it has not gone well. That might be true. That very well might be true, Joel, that the process hasn't looked great of the way things went at his pro day and some of that other stuff. But I think teams have accepted the fact that this is a generational talent, arguably the best player in this draft. A team like Seattle, you can't pass on him at 5. I think he still goes top 5. Where will Jalen Carter go in this draft? Is he going to fall out of the top 7? Let's lay the line there. The Vegas line, the Jonesy line. Top 7 on Jalen Carter. Will he fall out of the top 5? Y for yes, in for no. Tell me in the comments section, what are you thinking? Where will Jalen Carter end up? In or out of the top 7? Y for yes, in for no. Tell me in the comments section below. With the NFL Draft just around the corner, draft hats are on sale now while supplies last. You can get yours still right in time for the draft, whether you're a Broncos fan, Titans fan, Steelers fan, doesn't matter. We got hats for all 32 teams and in different colors, shapes, and sizes, whether you're feeling the flat bill version or the ball cap version. We have it all so you can represent your favorite team. You're going to a draft party? Well, you're in luck because you can get this hat, you can wear it to your draft party, and wear the same exact hat that future members of your favorite team are going to be wearing. So what are you waiting for? Get yours now while supplies last. Chatsports.com/NFL Draft Hats to get yours today. That's chatsports.com/NFL Draft Hats. We move ahead to number 10 now. Joel projects Bijan Robinson, who Joel saw a lot of at the University of Texas covering the Big 12, headed to Philly to fill that running back position. Philly just in the Super Bowl. The rich get richer with Bijan here going top 10. 11, that is where we see Peter Skoronski, the offensive tackle from Northwestern, headed to the Tennessee Titans. Now, most folks have Peter projected to go 9 to the Bears, so not that much of a slip going to 11, but significant to see him not going to Chicago, actually, in a mock draft. 12, we see Jackson Smith-Njigba going to the Houston Texans. That pairs up JSN with C.J. Stroud, 2 Ohio State teammates, according to Joel, in Houston. You might as well call them the Houston Buckeyes at that point. Here's what Joel had to say about JSN off the board to Houston. This guy is going to lead the league in receptions sometime in his first 3 or 4 years. He's that good. He understands space. He's got great hands. And even Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave admit that he was the best player on the field for their team 2 years ago. He is incredible. I like JSN. I think that according to the people I've talked to and just evaluating these guys, right now, he is the only wide receiver 1 in this draft. Could one develop and potentially change that down the road? Maybe. But he is the only one for certain that is a wide receiver 1 in this draft. It'd be a great get for Houston if they got JSN, paired him up with C.J. Stroud here. That would be awesome for the Houston Texans. 13, we find another Buckeye. This time it's offensive tackle Paris Johnson Jr., with the spot to the New York Jets. We'll see if they hold the pick, though, depending on the Aaron Rodgers situation. 14, Broderick Jones, the offensive tackle from Georgia, goes to the New England Patriots. Patriots are desperate at the tackle spot. That feels like a Belichick pick there. 15, the Packers, they go Michael Mayer. Aaron Rodgers, likely not in Green Bay next year. And I imagine Aaron somewhere would be pissed that they drafted a skill position player in the first round when he's not there. But the Packers have a need at the tight end spot, so it makes sense. 16, we find the Commanders going with Joey Porter Jr., the corner there, to beef up their defense. Steelers get much-needed help on the offensive line. Darnell Wright slides down to 17, the offensive tackle from Tennessee there for Pittsburgh. 18, Kalijah Cansey, the defensive tackle from Pitt. He goes to the Detroit Lions. Lions need a lot of help on that defense after all they went through in 2022. The arguably most athletic player in the entire draft, Nolan Smith, who was just a freak at the combine with what he did in his vertical jump and all those things. I know that the stats aren't too flashy of what he did on the football field, but in the underwear Olympics, this guy was something special. And I think that's going to catch the attention of a lot of teams here. Chicago gets him at 19, the edge rusher from Georgia. 20, the Seahawks go receiver Jordan Addison. Now this I have a problem with, Joel, if you're listening. Jordan Addison going to Seattle. Look, Jordan Addison, like I said earlier, I think that JSN is the only number one receiver in this draft. But Jordan Addison at 20 here, this is someone for me that I feel like Seattle does need to take care of receiver. But I don't think they need to take care of it at 20. You still have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, although Tyler Lockett's getting older. Addison at 20 right now, that seems like a reach. Seattle will draft receiver, but that to me is a bridge too far. This is what Joel had to say. I think this could be the start of a run at receivers. Jordan Addison to Seattle, that's really good value. No, it isn't, Joel. A lot of people will have him at number one at receiver, but I disagree with that. I don't know where Joel is saying a lot of people have Jordan Addison at number one. No one has Jordan Addison as their number one receiver right now. How many receivers are going to go in the first round? I think the stock on the receivers as a whole are slipping. JSN is the only one for certain I feel like is going to be a number one receiver. Quentin Johnston didn't get invited to the draft. We know why. I think that number is dwindling. It looked like at one point we were talking about potentially 5 guys. Now, I think the magic number is around 3, maybe 2 at this point. What say you? How many receivers will go first round in the NFL draft? Tell me in the comments section how many receivers are going to go in that first round. What is the magic number? Tell me in the comments section below. Folks, we're going to be live for all 7 rounds of the NFL draft. I'll be here. Tom Downey's going to be here. Will Scott, Harrison Graham, Chase Sr., Marshall Green, everybody. Matthew Peterson. It's going to be a dandy of a time. All 7 rounds, every single pick. We're not doing those goofy interviews or anything like that. We are just going to break down every single player throughout its entirety, all 3 days. So go ahead and subscribe to the channel, lock us in, turn on notifications, join the party. When we go live, be here because it is going to be a lot of fun. No other draft show is going to be doing the stuff we're going to be doing. I can tell you that. I can promise you that much. Subscribe now for free. Turn on notifications. Join us on draft nights. All 7 rounds, all 3 days right here on the channel, youtube.com/chatsportstv. We continue with Joel's run on receivers here, which, okay, Quentin Johnston going to the Chargers at 21. Lucas Van Ness goes to the Ravens at 22. Remember, they drafted Tyler Linderbaum out of Iowa in the first round last year. They go with Van Ness out of Iowa as well. He feels like a Raven. That makes a lot of sense. The Vikings, they need help at corner. They go Deonte Banks from Maryland at 23 with this selection. 24, the Jags go with Brian Branch, who can play safety and corner, either one, out of Alabama there at 24. 25 is where we find Jalen Hyatt. Now, Joel, I don't know what your deal is with these receivers, but we have another reach here. Jalen Hyatt is not a first-round pick. And what I'm about to read you from Joel, I'm almost embarrassed to read on Joel's behalf here because this is so wrong, but we'll say it anyway. For me, they really need a number 1 threat on the outside offensively. That's not Jalen Hyatt. What are you talking about, Joel? Jalen Hyatt makes a lot of sense to me right there. They need a guy that's a bona fide number 1 outside threat. Hyatt had a great year. Boy, you talk about a deep threat. He's certainly a great player. He's a project. He's a second-round pick. And he's not ready to be a number 1 anytime soon. But sure, let's go with that. The Giants get Jalen Hyatt at 25. 26, Dalton Kincaid goes to the Cowboys there, the tight end out of Utah. This is a good year when it comes to tight ends in the draft. And you look at Dalton Kincaid, this is a guy that I was impressed with what he did in the Rose Bowl there for Utah the last couple of years. Remember, they didn't have necessarily a great passing game, with Cam Rising and company, but yet Dalton Kincaid made the most of those opportunities here. To me, you look at the Dallas Cowboys, and I know that there is Dak's looking for some weapons of some sorts, but the offensive line is still the priority. I still think that if you're Dallas, you're still prioritizing the offensive line. Now, of course, tight ends do line up on the line, but here's what Joel had to say about this. I don't think this is a bad pick, but I would be surprised with this pick, put it that way. They have to get somebody to help Dak Prescott. Jerry has had a really good luck with tight ends, and they're generally at their best when they've got good tight ends. So Dalton Kincaid makes some sense. They need their next Jason Witten. You heard that right. He just called Dalton Kincaid Jason Witten to control and solidify the middle of the field. Moving on now. Got a few more picks to go here. Jahmyr Gibbs is who we find at 27, the running back from Alabama. With this pick, the Bills need a lot of help in that run game, especially when it comes January and running in that cold weather. 28, Cincinnati. They go tight end, another tight end off the board. This time, Darnell Washington out of Georgia at 28. 29, we see Brian with this pick here, the defensive tackle from Clemson, 29 to the New Orleans Saints. Brian Bresee with this selection. Bresee, I like this pick for the Saints here with where their defense is at, the problems that they faced last year. They need to beef up that defensive line. Bresee would be a good pick for New Orleans. 30, Philadelphia gets Keely Ringo, the corner from Clemson. And, the Eagles, they're still going to be a really good team this upcoming season, but they did lose a few guys in that defense. Keely Ringo is a guy that could be ready to start day one. I like that pick for Philly to potentially in the first round there with their second first-round pick. And then finally, to end the draft, Zay Flowers, the corner from Boston College, going to the Kansas City Chiefs at 31. And, with this pick, I told you that I'm not high on the receivers in this year's draft, but what I do like here with what Joel's going at, I'll give him credit for this, is sticking with the philosophy. Because what has Brett Veach done when it's come to the draft the last several years, ever since Patrick Mahomes became the starter in Kansas City? If you look at about every single draft, within the first two rounds, Brett Veach gets Patrick Mahomes a skill position weapon of some sorts. Whether that's a wideout, a running back, whatever it may be. And in this case, he'd be doing it again, another guy for Patrick Mahomes. And that's what Joel talks about here. This is a guy you put with Patrick Mahomes, you put with Andy Reid, and he immediately becomes a guy that can give you 50, 60 catches a year. When he runs routes, he breaks the ankles of defensive backs. He's clean, he's sudden, and he's got great hands. So although I'm not high on the receivers in this draft, I like the philosophy for Kansas City here of going with Zay Flowers with this pick. To me, that makes sense of where Joel is coming from there. And the Chiefs need help at receiver. So, what do you think of Joel's mock draft? I thought it was interesting. There were some highs and there were some lows. I would give Joel's mock draft probably about a B- or C+ myself. What say you? Grade Joel Klatt's mock draft in the comment section. Let me know. Also, hit me up on social media, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Tyler Jones Live. You can find me there. I'll see you next time right here on NFL Daily.